Congressman Joe Sestak is a Democrat from Pennsylvania and a three-star admiral running against Arlen Specter in the Democratic primary in the Commonwealth. You're happy we remembered that, of Pennsylvania. Congressman, Admiral, welcome back to Brian and the Judge.
Great to be back. Thanks, Brian. Thanks, Judge.
Well, Admiral, I know you're on a bit of a roll, closing the gap each and every day. You're an impressive candidate. I don't care what party you're from, and you bring no agenda except the country's agenda, which is encouraging, which makes me wonder, we don't know the answer to this question. How do you feel about General McChrystal's plan, and would you push to implement it quickly?
Yes, as a matter of fact, I wrote an op-ed, got it published around here because I wanted people to understand, particularly in a Democratic primary, where I sit. And I've read the McChrystal classified support. I am in support of a measured increase in troops as long as the goal is the eradication of al-Qaeda's safe haven in Pakistan. And this administration provides what it has failed to do thus far, an exit strategy, not a date that's certain to get out of there, but benchmarks that provide us a realization of, is a strategy, a counterinsurgency strategy, working or not? And if they provide that, and understand that we're not going to do nation building, we're just going to leave behind in Afghanistan, which is really just a base to close off the Taliban from coming into Afghanistan as Pakistan eradicates the radical Taliban over there, that we leave behind the probability that the al-Qaeda will never come back to Afghanistan. So I'm supportive of this measured increase the General has proposed.
Two questions. One, where does Senator Specter stand on this? And two, won't we have to stay there forever? I mean, won't the minute we leave, the Taliban just come back?
2 points. You're right. It's like usual, Arlen Specter, when he's asked the question, says, well, I've asked questions of Secretary Gates, and I'm going to ask a lot of questions whether we should be there and whether it's necessary. Look, I was on the ground in Afghanistan as the head of the anti-terrorism unit, Deep Blue, early in the war, and did retaliatory strikes. So basically, I have a very close feeling on this. But nevertheless, if you've been around for 8 years in this war, you should have a strong feeling about which side you're on. Look at the new updates from General McChrystal and make a decision and tell the public. And he has failed to do so. Number two, here's why it's different. As I mentioned, it's got to be an exit strategy. And in my op-ed, what I wrote is, after a couple of years, if we are not making success, then you fall back to the alternative strategy, which is a containment strategy. It's less good because you're going to have to rely upon being out of Afghanistan, relying more upon eavesdropping and other types of unmanned types of listening in to go back in surgically to eradicate. However, if we leave conditions behind, not relying upon the central government of Afghanistan, which is too corrupt, but remembering that before we went in Afghanistan in 2001, we said, Taliban, kick out al-Qaeda, we won't come in. They didn't. We went in. Now we know that there's only 20,000 Taliban in Afghanistan. 70% are there for a wage. They make 3.5 times a police officer does in Afghanistan. If we can neutralize the radical Taliban, 6,000 of them, let the warlords and those types of Taliban that are, let's say, less bad, let them have some economic power in the area so that they don't want al-Qaeda to come back. And this is the play that has to be done with some finances. It has to be done with some finesse, and it's not, as I said, a certainty, but a probability that they won't welcome back al-Qaeda. Since the Taliban, only the radical ones kind of side with the al-Qaeda. The others are there for a wage. Let them have some economic buy-in of what we leave behind so they don't buy in on the al-Qaeda. That's a strategy that's pretty tough.
You're the admiral, I'm not. But let's just say that Karzai wins the runoff. Abdullah is some type of coalition government, gets a little bit of power. That was the guy who was number two. If we have oversight, whether it's Ambassador Khalilzad, who's finally arrived in country and was born in Afghanistan, on their ministries. If we make them show us their books for a year or two, I don't think Karzai is inherently bad and can't be straightened out. Number two, I think the most important battle going on right now is in Waziristan, where al-Qaeda and the Taliban are, where the money is flowing in, where the drug money is converted to roads and infrastructure. Why don't we put our guys there and say, sorry, Pakistan, this is too important for us to allow you to lose again?
I agree with the first half of what you said. As The Economist said 2 years ago, Pakistan, the most dangerous place in the world for us. But We know if we even put U.S. soldiers over there, we've got about 30 or 40 doing some training, okay? But if we even go in there, we're going to be fighting the Pakistanis who are in their army as well as the radical ones. Because they're very proud that they feel they can do this job. What we have to do is the following. Our reason, again, for being in Afghanistan is only really a base to make sure that Pakistan's army turns away from being focused upon India and transitions to a counterinsurgency fight against the radical elements that are there. And why is this important? It's because there's 2,000 scientists in the nuclear business of Pakistan.
This is almost an intractable problem, Admiral. I mean, we can't enter the sovereign, pierce the sovereign border of a sovereign state without their consent, and we don't have the relationship with the government of Pakistan that we used to have when Musharraf was in.
Yeah, I met with President Musharraf twice, personally, one-on-one in the past 3 months to get his insight on this. And he wasn't by any means perfect, but he has some very good insights on it. Look, we've got 4 elements in that Pakistan army. The intelligence organization, which originally gave rise to the Taliban, the army, and 2 political groups. The only thing going for us, believe it or not, is recently as the Taliban became more powerful, it's like Samuel Johnson said, there's nothing like the prospect of a hanging to focus your mind. All of a sudden, those four separate entities are starting to work together because they realized as the Taliban became in 60 miles of Islamabad that they were being threatened. So the key here is covert assistance, training of them to go after the radical elements that protect al-Qaeda. If you notice in the battles going on yesterday and today, al-Qaeda is fighting alongside the Taliban in Pakistan. That's where the fight is, and that's the real reason to be in Afghanistan, to close the door so that they're not able to go back and forth as we hopefully work with Pakistan. And you're right, it's a tough one to eradicate that al-Qaeda safe haven so we are safe in America.
Admiral, I don't know if you read the New York Times, the account of that reporter that was held captive for about 7 months. And he talked about what he saw in Waziristan because he was taken there as a captive and thought he was going to be killed. He said he used to view the Taliban as al-Qaeda light, but now he realizes they're much more ambitious, with al-Qaeda wanting to create al-Qaeda and the Taliban wanting to create an Islamic emirate. Together, they want to do that. They have in Waziristan better roads, better infrastructure, better tax system than Karzai has in Afghanistan.
Absolutely. And here's why I say it's really in Pakistan where the fight is. The Taliban in Afghanistan, as I said, there's only about 30% are like the types in Waziristan. This is important because the fight's not really in Afghanistan. It's having Pakistan take care of the real radical Taliban that threaten not just Pakistan, but threaten the world by having a radical Islamic entity.
But they'll squirt right to Afghanistan. If you pound them in Pakistan, they'll go right back to Afghanistan.
But that's why I'm supportive of this slight and measured increase in troops, that we have to buy off the warlords. And those types of, let's take, for example, there's a Tajik warlord. He's gone to the Taliban. Lots of Tajiks in Tajikistan used to work in the oil fields of Russia. In this recession, they lost their jobs. They've come home, no money. They've gone to work for this Tajik warlord, and all of a sudden, we just got a neutralize.
Well, outpay him. Congressman Joe Sestak, congratulations on what you've done so far. Close the gap, and good luck the rest of the way.